Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what people like you are thinking. My name's Philip Anthony. Thank you for joining us today and every Saturday here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I hope everybody's feeling fantabulous today, and fantabulous is fantastic and fabulous put together twice as nice. So, as you know, the elections will be coming up in November. And so I'm trying to get as many wonderful DFL candidates on my show as possible. So we have one today. My special guest is Brian Cohn, who is running for Minnesota State House in District 57 Bravo B, which encompasses northern Lakeville, right? Did I get that right? Okay.
That's right.
And this seat is currently held by a Republican. So if my friend here, Brian, wins this seat, it's a flip. So I like flips. Anyway, hello, Brian, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show.
Good morning, Philip. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So I like to start off the show by having my guests share a little bit of their background for the audience. So basically, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Phil. I grew up in Chicago in a very politically active family. I had an uncle who was a state legislator there and eventually a member of Congress. So I've been steeped in this for my entire life. And as a kid, my parents really felt it was very important that we all give back. I remember I used to get a 35-cent allowance every week, and I had to save 10 cents of that to go to our temple for charity. So I've done that. I've been giving back my entire life. Went to college. I'm an engineer by training, and then turned into project management. And for the last 10 years was a consultant. I've got a wife and 4 adult kids and 1 grandson. And, my world all revolves around all of them.
Yes, and I'm sure you came into politics because you wanted a better life for your children and grandchildren.
Absolutely. That is the number one reason that I went into politics. And that's, why I put so much of my energy in making sure that we're funding education, that we are protecting the environment, addressing climate change.
Yeah. Climate change is a big one for the young generation.
Yes,
They
it is.
really are concerned about that. And I don't blame them because this is going to be their world. It's how we leave it for them, right, Brian?
Yes, it is. And we haven't done such a great job. So
Yeah.
we've got lots of work to do. I'm very happy to be here in Minnesota, where we do have good laws and lots of things to help us protect the environment going forward.
Yeah. Now I'm going to piggyback on what you said before. So you do a little birdie told me this. So that you do a lot of volunteering in Lakeville. Is that true?
That is true.
And can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I'm very proud to be a member of our Lakeville Lions. And as a group, we do volunteer work and fundraising. I think last year we gave something like $450,000 back to the community,
Wow.
which is really amazing. Tomorrow, I'll be out supporting a blood drive that we do. I do a lot of work distributing food to kids who don't have meals for the weekend. So I do a lot of work to try to address hunger and security. I've also gotten involved with 360 Communities, which is a great organization, and especially their Lewis House that helps survivors of domestic and sexual violence in their shelter, and working hard to raise about $15 million for them so they can expand that shelter, because we have such need in Dakota County, and there just is not sufficient capacity.
Yeah. I mean, food insecurity is a big issue here in the Twin Cities.
Yep.
A lot of people don't believe that because they have food, and so they think, "Oh no, it's overreacting," and it's not.
Right.
Because I've seen it myself. So
yeah. I mean, I'm surprised, probably not the right word, but just the number of kids that we're delivering food for every week at school, so they have food for the weekend. The number of beds that we deliver as part of the Sleep in Heavenly Peace program. Kids who don't have beds at home, even in Lakeville, that is a relatively affluent suburb overall. There's still a big need.
So I'm going to get back to what got you into politics. Now, there must have been one issue, or maybe a couple, that you said to yourself, you got the fire in the belly. I have to go out and do something instead of just being, complaining. People complain, oh, this and oh, that. but you want to do something about it, right?
Absolutely.
So what is it,
Yeah.
or what in plural or singular terms,
Yeah.
that you motivated you to get into politics
Yeah.
at all?
Well, I really sort of almost come back to my parents, and you talk about a lot. So many people sit and complain about it, and they taught me you only fix systems by being a part of them, and so that's really is driving it. I see um, the need for us to invest more in our schools, to invest more in the environment, to address gun violence, all of those things. And I feel that I have the skills developed over the years that I can work from the inside and make a difference.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because being a legislator and an executive are different.
Absolutely.
One is communal. You have to work with people,
Yes.
to get things done. And the other one, the executive, is like, okay, I want this, and So, what prepared you to become a legislator in your previous life,
Yeah.
uh, to work with other people to get things done, basically?
Yeah. So as I said, I've spent much of my career as a project manager, which means we get things done with teams of people that all hopefully want to see the same goal. They certainly want their paychecks as part of the job, but it's part of my job as a project manager, as a project leader, to get people on board, get them to see the vision that we want, the picture that we want for the future. I spent the last part of my career as a consultant helping companies improve business process, which meant I ran a lot of workshops. And so we had people who came in, and it started as sort of you described people complaining about a problem. People, sort of what we see in politics today, of having solutions that they're advocating their solutions, and they just talk across each other with those solutions. And I always work hard in those workshops to come back to what is it the problem we're trying to solve. And it's even when people have different solutions, they can usually agree on what the problem is. And if we can agree on the problem and then look at the data behind it, then we can say, what step can we take forward that makes a difference, that we can all live with it? We can all agree that will make a difference. And I really want to take that to the legislature.
Yes, and it's funny. I just did some recently, some door knocking, and I come across people, and they're like, I say to them, why are you doing this? And they say, because I don't want to be one of those people, armchair quarterback, sitting back and, oh, this is terrible, and oh, that's awful, and I want to do something about it. So you're going an extra step by running for office, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a natural progression. I did a lot of door knocking, Liz, you did. I was sort of quasi campaign manager for the woman who ran before me and her treasurer. And so it seemed it was a very logical step to step up and run for office.
Yeah, well, that's why I have this show. I
Yeah.
mean, I had, I kind of sold it. I said I really want to do something for, the progressive community out there, that, people that want things to change.
Yep.
Most people don't like the way things are now. I mean, really, look at the price of everything, gasoline, and we weren't supposed to be in wars, and now we're in wars, and
Yep.
yada yada. And so it's just become like, you know, let's get off our keisters,
Yes.
as we used to say in New York, and do something about it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to talk about your constituents, because
Sure.
you're very proud of that. You love your
Yes.
constituents, and I can tell from talking to you beforehand.
Yep.
What kind of constituents are in your district,
Mhm.
and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it, it is a suburban district, and it is, for the most part, families, lots of uh, families with young kids. We see people that have lived in Lakeville for 50 years that have raised their kids, and their kids are now living there if they've got there a few years ago. And just like me, they want to make sure that their kids and their grandkids have a great world to grow up in, that they have safe schools, schools that are educating the kids. They want to see good jobs that they can commute to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't Lakeville, correct me if I'm wrong, because,
Yeah.
I'm only here maybe 25 years
Yeah.
tops. Is Lakeville the last ring suburb of the Twin Cities? One of the southern last rings of
Yes. Yeah. So it is, if you think about it, is we've got this sort of just south of the river suburbs of Egan and Apple Valley, Burnsville,
Right.
Savage. And then beyond that, you've got sort of on the far eastern end, Farmington, then Lakeville, and then you sort of get into Prior Lake. So it is definitely at the fringe. Because it's at the edge, it means that there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of land available. There's land being converted from farmland into housing land. And we're seeing a lot of young families move up from the cities, from suburbs a little further north. And so we're seeing definitely a change in the demographics, uh, and it is moving more is moving more blue as time goes on. And
Yeah.
you know,
Well, that's, what happens with urban, well, they used to call it back in the day, urban sprawl, I think was the
yes,
term.
yeah,
When it becomes more urban, people start seeing people that are different from
yes,
them,
yes,
and they start understanding, hey, they're kind of nice.
yeah,
And maybe I want to not be such a curmudgeon, you know,
yeah.
get off my lawn kind of person,
Right. I mean,
Uh,
and that's certainly something that's also changed in Lakeville over the last 15 to 20 years is it was a pretty homogenous community. And now with the new housing coming in, we are much, much more diverse.
Yeah, yeah. So another question I wanted to ask is about the issues that are impacting your community
Yes.
the most.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the things you're hearing when
Yeah.
you knock doors or you speak to your future constituents? I'm trying to be positive.
Yes.
What are you hearing?
Yeah. So I see a lot of families that have stretched their budgets to move to Lakeville. And with gas prices going through the roof, through $100 grocery bags, they're really feeling an economic pinch. People I see feeling the biggest pinch are families with young kids that need to pay for childcare, and they talk about having to take out as equivalent of a second or a third mortgage, depending on how many kids they've got. And so we need to do something to help them. Uh, I also other side piece of affordability I hear is parents who have kids that are in their 20s and that would love to come back and live in the community, and they've been priced out. So we also need to figure out some way to get both more affordable housing in the community, but we also need more jobs in the community that can pay wages that are commensurate with the housing costs. I would say the last thing, one other thing I hear frequently is, and we talked about this earlier, they're tired of the rancor of politics. And they really want people to come in who are going to speak carefully, listen to them, understand the issues, and go out and find those common sense solutions that make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people say, I don't follow politics. And
Yep,
my answer to them is well, you may not follow politics, but it follows you.
absolutely.
So
Yes, it
if you
is.
don't do anything about it, it's
Yes,
just going to be the same old, same old.
yes.
And I don't think very many people today are happy with the results of what happened in 2024. They thought, oh, everything's going to be peachy, everything's going to be wonderful, kumbaya, everybody's going to be happy. No, it didn't happen that way, right, Brian?
No, no, it didn't happen. Certainly, many of the people that I spend time with in the community have spent much of their winter delivering food to people who were afraid to leave their houses, going and following the ICE agents and being observers.
Did you see,
Uh,
excuse me, did you see a lot of that in Lakeville, ICE people?
We didn't see a lot of them in most of Lakeville. There were a lot just north of us in Apple Valley and Burnsville, and there was one spot on the south end of town where a lot of immigrants would tend to go to breakfast before going to some of the warehouse jobs, and ICE was staking them. They had a hotel there or across
You
the
mean
street from
they're
it.
targeting immigrants and minorities? Oh my goodness.
Yes, they were. Oh,
Unbelievable.
yes.
Unreal. Anyway, I digress. So the hallmark of your campaign,
Yeah.
my friend from Minnesota House, is safety. Now, I went
Yes.
on your website,
Yeah.
and that was the first thing I saw,
Yeah.
and it's blaring in neon colors,
Yes.
So you've stated that everyone deserves, this is from your website,
Yep.
deserves to feel safe at home, at school, and in their community. So, would you talk about safety and what you would do
Yep.
to make your future constituents
Yep.
feel safer?
Sure. Um, first, we need to continue to support our fantastic first responders in Lakeville. We've got a great police department. I had the honor this winter of taking their citizen academy and getting to meet some members of the force and see how professional they are. Went on a ride along during the time of ICE, and we talked about they were really challenged that they saw the behavior of the ICE agents, and they and the police officer said, we work so hard to build a positive relationship with our community, and they're messing it up for us. And it's so much work. So they work really hard. I was fortunate this summer, we opened up a training center for our first responders. And as the state, we need to keep helping to fund things like that. I've also been very active in Moms Demand Action. So that means really addressing gun violence. And in suburbia, that tends to be, I mean, again, I always think about it from the kids' perspective. It's often kids who get access to unsecured guns. So we really need to work on that. We never, ever, ever want to see another event like what happened in Annunciation. So we need to address these high capacity magazines that made them and allowed them to do so much damage so quickly.
Yes. So our current president, I'm going to do a little U-turn here,
Yeah.
has said that affordability is a, quote, Democratic hoax,
Hmm.
which is insane to me that he even said that. But anyway, you know and I know
Yes.
that it's most likely the number one issue for voters.
Yes.
And so what would you propose to do to make life less costly? That's a tongue twister. When it comes to childcare, housing, healthcare, all of these things down the line.
Yep. So let's start with healthcare. To me, so much of our healthcare cost, unfortunately, is going into administration, and um, it shows up in really unnecessary prior approvals that slow things down.
Paper pushing. Yeah.
There's a lot of paper pushing.
Mm.
We also know that Medicare has administrative costs that are like 10% of traditional insurance. So we need to get to a single payer healthcare system to lower our costs of healthcare.
Wow. Now I love you more.
There's a lot of work to do there.
I had cancer twice. And I'll tell you, if I did not have the job I had,
Yes.
I don't know where I'd be right now.
Yes.
Because I was under 65, so I
Yep.
didn't have Medicare,
Yep.
which is an amazing program for
Yes.
people. Thank you, LBJ,
Yes.
that a Democrat, for people that are 65 and over.
Yep.
But there are people in their 50s that get sick, like me,
Right.
40s, 30s. Why can't we just open it up to more people? What would be the problem? We can send people to war and spend all this money on nonsense, on vanity projects, Brian.
Yep.
But we just can't seem to do things for the people out there. So
Yes.
anyway,
I mean, of course, there's a lot of moneyed interest in the insurance companies to keep that model. There's also, I think, a lot of incentive, especially for large organizations, to keep offering healthcare that's reasonably good because it helps them attract employees. If we take that lever away from them, now they have to compete with, it becomes just as attractive to go to small companies and things like that. But I think you've hit on one of the nails on the head that I think is the toughest part of getting to universal healthcare, which is breaking the source of funding from being employer payments to some sort of public payment into the single payer healthcare system.
yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody gets sick.
Yes.
I'm going to tell the young people out there, listen to the show.
Yeah.
You're not invulnerable. It can happen, God forbid, but it's something that we have to fix.
Yes.
Because there are so many people that are out of the loop and then not able to have access, even access
Right.
to health care. Not only affordable health care, but access at all. Anyway, I hear music, so that means we're gonna take a break. And then when we come back, we could do more about childcare, housing, and healthcare if you'd like to,
Yep.
Brian. So my name is Philip Anthony. This is the Downright Upright Show here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. We'll be back on the other side. And welcome back to the Downright Upright Show. My name is Philip Anthony. I'm here with Brian Cohn, who is running for the Minnesota House. Love the Minnesota House. They're amazing. So I want to get back to health. You wanted to add something else to your healthcare you know, issue. What is it about healthcare that you think is of concern to your constituents?
Yeah. Well, before the break, you talked a little bit about young people getting sick and they think, oh, I don't need insurance.
Yeah.
And my son has struggled for a number of years with addiction. And he lived out in Las Vegas where they don't have as good a social safety net as we have here in Minnesota. And he went through several programs and it never stuck. He was very fortunate. He came back here, was able to take care of some of the programs that we have, but I haven't looked at how much debt he's saddled with to cover that. But those are the sorts of things that we need to. One of the many reasons why we need universal health care, and we need to make sure that it includes good mental health and addiction care, and dental care and vision care. It needs to cover everything.
Yeah, and that's a good point because a lot of people, when they think of healthcare,
Yeah.
they think of just physical health.
Yes.
Mental health is a biggie.
Yes, it is.
It's a biggie.
Right.
And a lot of people, when they hear about mental health, it becomes like a stigma. And I am here to say it isn't because, you may be lucky that you have, everything's going well up there in your mind. But there are people that are struggling,
Yep.
whether it be, through the autism spectrum, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
And that healthcare is so essential to
Yes.
that family.
Yes. And
Right?
we've been talking about affordability, and I see my kids, and they're doing okay, but not great. But there's a lot of stress of living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I've had help. I know our daughters have had help with talking with counselors, and it has really helped them and me deal with that stress. And so we have to do that. We have to, especially here in Minnesota, work to improve our Medicaid reimbursement rates for mental health and broadband so that it's accessible around the state, especially in our rural communities.
How about childcare and housing?
Yeah.
That was also
That was on
something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So
Anything to say about that?
yeah, I mean, I think we've done a good job here in Minnesota of providing some uh, child credits, and we need to continue those. We need to make sure that they're refundable, so that people, even if they're not paying taxes, they can still get the help with that. Uh, and I think we also need to look at some of our licensing laws, see if there's some things we can do to reduce some burdens for especially the smallest of our daycare providers, so that we can have more daycare providers in our system.
When and I'm going to do another U-turn.
Yeah.
When I speak to people in my district,
Yeah.
whenever I go to an event, a convention, or whatever,
Yeah.
the big thing for them is property taxes.
Yes.
Now, I get it, that, they're too high. And I know that personally because I live in a house and I pay property taxes.
Yes.
So could you address that issue of concern to many people, probably in your district too?
Yeah, it is definitely a concern to people in our district. It's a huge concern to our older population, people living on fixed income, people that have paid off their mortgages. I looked at my escrow bill. I mean, it is now approaching my mortgage payment. And so we need to do things as a state to reduce the burden on our counties. And the federal government is putting more burden on our counties as they've reduced the payments that they make here in the county for SNAP benefits and things like that, and Medicaid. So we've got to find some ways to bring that in from the state. Same thing is true for our schools. Our schools all are relying on levies to be able to really fulfill their operating expenses, and we need to do that. I also think as we look at school funding, I think we have a decent formula for school districts that are stable, but I think there's real challenges with it for either school districts that are declining or growing. I mean, we have levies, it seems like every other year in Lakeville for building new schools. And uh, I would love to have some mechanism to pay for that that doesn't require coming to the local taxpayers every single time.
Okay. Well, let's get to the campaign a little bit,
Sure.
because that's what you're here for. Um, I'm going to ask you a very basic, simple question.
Sure.
What sets you
Yep.
apart from your opponent, who will remain nameless,
Yes.
and why should people vote for you,
Right.
basically?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been a hard worker my whole career, and that's what I promised to do. We've been out knocking doors since March, heavily since May,
Hmm.
and I spend a lot of time listening to people, coming to where they are to listen. Uh, Unlike our Democratic House members to the north of us, I think we've had one forum with our current legislator in the last 4 years, and so I don't feel like he's spending a lot of time listening to his constituents. And there's a couple of issues where there are really big differences between him and me. We've talked about gun safety. He has voted against just about every common sense gun safety bill that's coming up, that has come up. He's stopped a lot of things in the public safety committee that he sits on. So that's one area. Another area where there's a big difference is around reproductive freedom. That I believe that um, what it that those are decisions between women and their doctors. The state shouldn't get involved. My opponent has gotten sort of the highest ratings from the MCCL for the last couple of cycles. So there's a big difference
What's
there.
that for the audience?
Yes.
What's that acronym stand? Do you know?
Minnesota's Citizens Concern for Life,
Oh, okay.
something close to that.
Right.
It's a very much
Controlling
pro-life
women's
group.
bodies, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Now, what
Yes.
is this? What is it with, I'm going off on a tangerine a little bit
That's
here
fine.
because why do you think Republicans look at marginalized people and attack them all the time, like women? You know, with the election, like
Yeah.
with ballots,
Hmm.
they want to pass the Save Act,
Yes.
and women change their names. So your name on your birth certificate may not be the same as your name now,
Right.
and if you don't have a passport because you may not travel or you may
Yeah.
not have a lot of money
Yeah.
to go away,
Yeah.
you may not have a passport.
Yeah.
So why do you think they were attacking women and LGBT and down the road? Isn't the idea of running for office to gain voters? That was
Yes.
I
Right.
always thought
Yes.
that I found that fascinating.
Right. Right.
Audience.
Yes.
Anyway,
Right.
what do you say?
Well, so you brought up a good point here. I mean, that many people are struggling. That you know, so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't believe it's their fault. There are some things in sort of the Republican doctrine that are sort of built around the sense that money and wealth are a surrogate for being good. So if you have money, you must be a good person. If you're struggling, maybe you're not such a good person. And so you need somebody to blame. A- And
Wow.
and so we have all of these people who are not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and that we give somebody to blame, say, "Well, I'm struggling because of them or because of them," which is so different from the way I believe that we all have value, that the diversity that we have in this country is what makes us great.
Exactly. And I have to say, whether you're Christian or not, or whatever you are, um, in the Christian Bible, it says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. So if you are using your Christianity
Mhm.
to buttress your hatred of the poor and of the marginalized, I would suggest you open the Bible again. Anyway, but that's just me,
Yes.
Brian. Um, anyway, the Republicans are a noun and a verb and fraud. That's
Yes.
what they're going to do
Yes.
in this election.
Yes.
Noun and a verb, fraud. Noun and a verb and fraud.
Yes.
So address that,
Yeah.
please.
So I really am furious at the greedy people who believe that they can scam our system and skim money off the top and take it from the people who really need it. Uh, and we have to do things on many levels to both punish those people who have done it in the past and prevent it from happening in the future. Because there will always, unfortunately, be greedy people. And one of the things that's really important to remember from my perspective is the fraud is not being committed by our government employees. For the most part, it is not being committed by the people who are taking advantages of the services that we offer. It's middlemen.
Hmm.
It's the people in the middle that we have outsourced the distribution of funds or the providing of services to these people. And so I think we also need to go back and take a look at, and it was a Republican doctrine to privatize and outsource, and take a look and say, should we bring some of that stuff back in, take out that potential for those greedy people to to abuse the system?
Yeah, but it's what I'm trying to get at anyway
Yes.
is we don't corner the market on fraud, the Democratic Party. If you
Right.
look at Florida, there's a senator down there who I think you know who I mean, right?
Yes. Yes.
And who is been charged with Medicare fraud,
Yes.
and we don't hear a peep on the news about it.
Right.
All you hear about is Minnesota. Okay, so we caught it,
Yes.
right? We found out what
Yes.
happened,
Right.
and we took care of it. Well,
Yes.
why don't you talk about that? I know that because they're very, very good at deflecting. So I'm going to deflect.
Yes.
Do something about Florida, please.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
saying
Yeah.
for a friend.
Right. I mean, it's one of the things about us here in Minnesota is that we have the integrity to find and identify things that are wrong and the strength to go fix it. And we need to keep doing that.
Yes. Now I'm going to go to voting now.
Yes.
Many Minnesotans have told me that they're concerned about the voter rolls because the president's been asking Steve Simon for the voter rolls.
Yes.
He even said, I'll take ICE out of Minnesota if you give me the voter rolls, which I can't believe that a president would even say that.
Right.
It's insane. It's almost like you woke up in a nightmare. It's like what happened to the Constitution?
Right.
So what say you? How can you allay the fears of your constituents that the vote will be secure and that who will not have control of the elections?
Right. Right. So I put a lot of faith and belief in our Secretary of State, Steve Simon. He's doing a
Yes.
great job. We have, like every state, we have an incredibly distributed voting system. It's not that the reality is the Secretary of State's office sort of collects the final count. It's actually run at the county level.
Yes.
And
it is
because it is so decentralized, I think it would be difficult for people to come in and disrupt it. I feel it's important that we not give them the voter rolls, not get the post office involved in deciding who gets to get
that too.
absentee ballot and who doesn't. We have good safeguards here. It is a felony to vote when you are not legally allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I think, a good system for our in our absentee ballots requiring, if you want one, you need to provide some sort of identification. You just send it back. You need a witness that says that you voted. So all of those things on our absentee ballot system are well protected.
Yes.
We have strong laws that prevent people from being near our polling stations to interfere.
Thank you. I was going to bring that up. So you're reading my mind, Brian.
Yes.
I don't understand why ICE has anything to do with voting. I mean, look, if you have the name of somebody who committed a crime, right, and who is undocumented, and you want to go get them at their house, and you have a warrant,
yes,
a legal warrant to get them and deport them. I don't have a problem. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I mean, if they're killing people or raping people or whatever, we want them gone.
Right.
But this is just intimidating people of color, marginalized people at the polls. Why would they be there?
Well, I even go further is unless your only purpose is to intimidate, why would you be there? Because no non-citizen can go to the polls and vote. So, but
Mhm.
by definition, you're going someplace where the people, if you're trying to pick up someone who is undocumented, someone who you have a warrant for, they're not going to be there.
Yes, Brian. But again, we're preaching to the choir
Yes,
here,
we are.
and I don't understand the intimidation. It almost reminds me of, remember back in the day during Jim Crow, they used to have like a jar of jelly beans on the voting table where people would
Yep.
go to vote,
Yep.
and if an African American person went this, you have to tell me how many jelly. I mean, things like that. They would use all these ways of dissuading people from voting.
Right.
And isn't the idea of a democracy, a healthy democracy, is to have everybody that's eligible go out and vote? That's your power,
Yes, it is. Yes.
Brian.
It is absolutely your power. I mean, I've done a lot of work spent a lot of time in Europe as part of my job, and their election day is usually a holiday, and they have very, very high voter turnout. And they asked me, well, Brian, why don't people vote in the United States? I mean, even here in Minnesota, where we have high voter turnout, it's still something like in the mid 70% range.
Right.
Where are those? I mean, I think about other places I've been. I mean, other places I've been where it's lower than that. And how do you talk to the sometimes 50% of the people who are eligible to vote who don't
Yeah, yeah.
participate? It gets back to I'm not one of those because I don't want to be one of the people who didn't vote and then whines.
Yeah, yeah, right. So this question I ask all the politicians. So you're not
Yes.
unique in this with this question.
Yes.
And I always ask it because I want to know where their boundaries are, you
Sure.
know. So you know how people say, "Oh, I'm going to work across the aisle with the other side." Okay, great.
Yeah.
But there must be
Yes.
certain issues
Right.
in your mind
Yes.
that there's no boundary that you would cross. Like if a Republican said, "I want this," you would be like, "Absolutely not." Do you have those kind of issues?
Sure. Well,
Because we want you to work across the aisle
we want
to
to work
get
across
things
sides,
done,
right? I mean,
but don't compromise your integrity.
right, right.
Yeah,
So we've talked to one before around reproductive freedom. I mean,
right,
we're just not going to cross the line there.
correct.
You know, we're
You said guns
we would
too.
say guns would be another area. The other thing I would look at, of course, the Republicans are. We feel we wish we paid less in taxes. I don't know anybody that wishes they paid more. But we need to flip the think of it is that through our taxes, we're paying for services. And, the Republicans, I keep hearing the Republicans say, well, let's cut taxes. I never hear them talk about what they're going to stop paying for. What are the services that we don't? They come back with the vague waste, fraud, and abuse. But
I could piggyback on you,
yeah,
maybe help you a little bit, and
yes,
tell me what you think. Okay,
yes,
they also don't say who should pay the taxes.
yes,
They want lower taxes, great.
yes,
But why does Elon Musk, who is probably the first trillionaire in the world,
yes.
why does he not have to pay his fair share of taxes? Brian, asking for a friend here.
Yes. That's
I
a
don't
great
know.
question. In fact, my opponent, when we had a forum last year, talked about wanting to push more taxes down to make our tax code less progressive,
Fairer, yeah.
less fair. He wanted to make it less
Oh,
progressive. He wanted
yes,
to make it,
okay.
and you're right. I absolutely believe we need to find that, you know, we don't have a total money problem. There are lots of people who are high earners who are not paying as much. I do think we need to find a way to tax unrecognized gains, where a lot of people are building up their wealth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it would be like telling a worker, "Do you want to make less money?
Right.
You're working.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut your salary
Yeah.
because the revenue we get is what protects our neighborhoods and healthcare and all the things that we need." So
Yes.
anyway, I hear music, which
Okay.
means we have to take our second break.
Yep.
And we'll be right back. This is the Downright Upright Show here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. And welcome back to the Downright Upright Show. My name is Philip Anthony, and I am here with Brian Cohn of Lakeville, who's running for Minnesota House. And during the break, we were discussing data centers, and you wanted to bring up something about that because you're hearing that from your constituents, aren't you? Your future
The share for the
constituents.
future.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, they are very, very worried about water consumption. I had a endorsement interview with a group a couple of weeks ago, and with a farmer out in Hampton, just a little outside of Lakeville, who said she's already having trouble getting enough water for irrigation, let alone what's going to happen if giant data centers come in and siphon off so much. We hear about noise, we hear about the pollution of their generators. We have
Are
a
they very noisy? Because I've never been near one. Have you?
I have not been near one. Now, I worked for a while for a company that made the giant coolers that cool those things, and those things are crazy noisy.
Really?
Yeah. Now,
Wow.
hopefully, the buildings are relatively well insulated, but what I hear that what we hear from people around them is that the data centers tend to be noisy. They all have running diesel backup generators because they can't go down, and those are noisy and they pollute all the diesel
Oh,
particulate.
no.
So we have a lot of work to do in the legislature to develop rules to decide when we can license them. We also need to really address the non-disclosure agreements. They're trying to bring these things under a cloak of secrecy, and I can understand them very, very, very early in the process, but we can't let them go very far under any secrecy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so getting back to taxes, why do you think it's important that the Minnesota DFL,
Yep.
give tax breaks to working families
Yep.
instead of multinational corporations?
Yep.
Because I think that would be a nice way to run
Yep.
on taxes.
Yeah. I mean,
Instead of just saying, "Oh, they're going to raise your taxes." Yeah, well, you're making a general statement.
right.
You're not addressing who are going to pay more taxes, right?
Absolutely. Well, the big corporations are probably the biggest recipients of benefit from
Oh
our state
yeah.
taxes. Our whole road infrastructure, the internet, the fact that we have a fantastic educated population to do all the innovative things that our companies do here. We need to make sure that they're paying their fair share for the huge benefit they get.
Yeah, because Elon Musk needs and his companies need more money. I mean, they don't have enough money. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, folks. I know, but I digress. Anyway, so as you know,
Yep.
Brian, the Downright Upright Show is an LGBTQ slash progressive focused show,
Yep.
and I created this show personally because I felt my community needed a little pick me up.
Yes.
So that's why we created our block on Saturday of all our LGBT shows. So when MAGA is knocking us down,
Yep.
a rung at a time on the ladder, what would you do or will you do
Mhm.
to make sure every constituent of yours, including the LGBTQ plus community, is treated equally and fairly and with respect?
Yep. So I would say the number one on that is supporting the Minnesota Rights Amendment. We need to get that passed to ensure that we have equality and equity across the board. Um, and I'm not close to the community, I'll be honest. Uh,
Yes, you are. You love me.
I love you. um, and I know there are a lot of very subtle issues. And this is the place where I feel it's so important for me to take the time to listen, to understand, to listen to people that are feeling it. I mean, one of the things about discrimination is if I can't tell the LGBTQ how they're being discriminated against, it is all in the eyes. It is not necessarily the eyes, but it is how it's happening to you. And so I need the people that are feeling that to tell me so we can work on the issues.
Yeah, but it's just like any other group that's being
Yes, we need
discriminated, and
absolutely.
I think when you're discriminated yourself, whether you're in the Jewish community, whether you're African American, whether you're whatever, um, you understand what it's like to be marginalized and
Yes.
treated that way. So our communities just treat us the same way you would want to be treated.
Right.
It sounds like the golden rule, right, Brian?
It is. I mean,
So
the fact that this is necessary is mind-boggling in this day and age. There is absolutely no reason for us to be discriminating against any group.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so now we're down to the last 4.5 minutes of the show.
Sure.
And so I usually like to open up that time
Yep.
for my guest because they probably have something they want to say that I haven't brought up.
Yep.
Now, a little birdie told me about your uncle, who I was fascinated by this. I have to say, folks, you're not going to believe when you hear this. Your uncle, his name, I'm going to say his name, Representative Abner Mikva. Where was he a representative?
So I said I talked about this very beginning at the beginning here. He was, when I was born, he was a state House of Representatives in Illinois. From the same area where Barack Obama started in Springfield.
Really?
Yes.
Did he know Barack Obama?
Oh, very well.
No.
Yes. And so this will get to the end of the story.
Okay.
Here.
Yes, please.
Yeah, right. So so my uncle was a labor lawyer. In the 50s, he went, his first thing that they introduced was a Housing Discrimination Act, which sort of got booed out. But he stayed with that. Then he became a representative from Hyde Park, the area around the University of Chicago.
Right.
Mayor Daley didn't like him. They redistricted him out. And then they districted him with a very, very, very popular representative in Congress. I believe it was Sidney Yates, who probably doesn't be much here. He moved out, and then he run in 3 nail-biter elections later, and then he actually knew Walter Mondale very well, and President Carter, and they appointed him to the federal bench. So now he's been on the legislative side, he's been on the judicial side, and then in the early 90s, President Clinton tapped him to be White House counsel. So he's one of the very few people who served in all 3 branches of government.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then in about 2014, I don't remember the exact year, because then he went back after he retired and became an arbitrator. Largely, he helped settle big contract disputes. I think there was a very famous one in Chicago with I think it was with the symphony orchestra. And then he became an advisor to Obama as he was starting his political career. And so eventually, I believe it was about 2014, Obama gave him this enormous honor of giving him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And that level of service to the government and service to the people has inspired me and is a big part of the reasons why I'm running.
Wow. Folks, look at that. It's in your bloodstream, buddy.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it really is. I mean, when I read that was amazing. Well, we have a minute.
Yes.
So is there anything else you want to say that I have not brought up that you would like to tell the audience?
First, I'd like to really thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. The other thing is, this is a midterm election, and the decision is going to be made by those who show up. So it's just so important to everybody to get to the polls. When I analyzed the data from the last midterm election, we had a great candidate who was running then. She lost by a few percent. And we had analyzed it. More strong Dems didn't show up to vote than strong Republicans. And so we really need every strong progressive person to get to the polls on or before Election Day this year.
Wow. Yeah. Don't forget. What's it? November 3rd.
November
right?
3rd. Early voting opens around September 20th.
September 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
46 days out.
And I always say this, folks, go to the Secretary of State website. Find out where your polling place is, because some people go to the wrong polling place and then they get discouraged and they don't vote. So please, before you go to the Secretary of State website. Brian, you're amazing. Thank you for being a guest on my show, and we'll do it again sometime.
I would love to come back on November 5th, in a couple of days after the election, and talk about what it's like to be an incoming legislator.
Yes. Anyway, thank you, folks, for listening to the Downright Upright Show. My name is Philip Anthony. I love you. I hug you. I adore you. Vote. Bye.